I think this probably falls a little bit more in our wheelhouse, and we need to cover it because we haven't covered it as a group as the post-duopoly left. So let's listen to this. This is the Jimmy takedown of Marianne Williamson. We're going to cover it together here, and we'll keep it short. There's 2 clips amounting to 4 minutes. So let's listen to the entire clip. Comment when you want.
What is your view on the Ukraine war?
Well, I certainly am not naive about how we got there. I certainly understand that the U.S. Poked the bear. I certainly understand about the Aegis missiles in Poland. I don't feel that I'm naive at all about how the U.S. war machine works.
So I'm trying to figure. So you're saying you support Joe Biden's policy in Ukraine?
What I don't support about Joe Biden's policy is when he says for as long as it takes. He and Lloyd Austin just talk about how we're just giving money for as long as it takes. We need to be in support of a negotiated settlement.
So there is already.
She really believes in the professional managerial class. Really believes saying my difference in Joe Biden is I'm not for as long as it takes. Well, how long are you for? Well, I can't really say. Well, what's the difference? So she wants to point out this difference, and you notice he keeps asking one question, and then she gives the opposite response. Like her response here was what she disagrees with him with, and then, but that's not the question he asked. He's like, do you agree with Joe Biden on Ukraine? And do you have the same stance? He's like, what I do or disagree with him on is that I don't think this basically should be a blank check. But if that's the only disagreement, that means you agree with him like literally 99.9% on Ukraine, including cluster munitions, including the latest package that was just sent. She's pretty terrible on Ukraine, and I think she knows it finally after this interview. But we can continue.
She looks like she looks like one of those like wine moms that you interrupted her after her 5th drink. Like, how dare you say I'm wrong?
Let's continue.
There already was a
of course, theoretically, you would say, I mean, Jake Sherman was there. So to some extent, of course,
So you're aware that in 2014 that the CIA couped the Ukrainian government with the help of the right-wing Nazis, and then the people in the eastern part of Ukraine in the Donbass didn't want to go along with that couped government, and so Ukraine started shelling them.
You see that she wants to interrupt. There's a couple of things I want to say here. I didn't say in the time that you and I covered it, Nick. He is saying something that this is the part she studied. So it's like, don't give me the answer to the test, man. This is the part I do know that I could say that people would say that I know something about it. You're saying it, Jimmy. So that's one thing. And then to Nick's point in a previous stream, and I don't know if you guys saw his point, is that she's going to be disowned for this because in the professional managerial class left, you're not supposed to talk about Ukraine. And the reason is this very thing. You see what he's doing here? He's forcing her to hear the entire details about Ukraine so you can't say, I was not aware of that. Because a lot of NATO left, as you said, and a lot of us, I think Keaton alluded to, they don't make content on Ukraine. So they can basically say, none. A lot of detail I didn't know. You know, it's like Bernie Sanders said that one time about some other funny. I don't really deal with that. So, but Jimmy is forcing her to hear the story about how we got here, where she can't say later in another stream or even pretend to act like she doesn't know about. I'll let it finish, and then if we have some other comments, we can.
The government of Ukraine, the couped government, started shelling them. And so they had the peace agreement called the Minsk Accords, which we now know which was going to give the people in the Donbass, they would stop shelling them, and that they would give them some kind of independence because they were the Russian speakers in that country in the east part. And so Ukraine never followed that peace agreement. And now we know, because Angela Merkel and others have revealed it, that they never intended on following that peace agreement, and they didn't, and they kept shelling those people in the Donbass. And when Putin invaded, it was to stop that shelling. So were you aware of that history?
I am aware of what you are saying. I am not enrolled in your interpretation of exactly what you are saying. I am not.
Now, think about what she's saying here. Think about what she's saying here. What about the chronological historical record of what he said? They were shelled here. What about that is wrong or is incorrect? Now, she tries to answer it, but listen to her non-answer answer in this second clip, and this will be the last clip we play. Comment if you want, or to let me know if you want to comment. But listen to the rest of her answer in this video.
Problem I have with it. I do not believe that Ukraine is nothing but a puppet of the United States.
He didn't mention that. He didn't mention anything about a puppet whatsoever, but this is what she chooses to chime in. So it was nothing about the chronological historical record that he said about the coup in Ukraine 2014-15. Nothing about that. She's saying something completely different. Now, let's let the video finish. We'll get final comments and we can finally end the stream.
Okay, so we're not going to agree on that one.
So if we stop funding the Ukraine government, the Ukraine government shuts down. Do you know that? Do you know if we stop funding the Ukraine government shuts down, right? We're paying every person in the Ukraine government salary. We're paying their Social Security. You know that, right? Or maybe you don't.
Let me ask you if you know, because I don't like to be talked to like, do you know? So
I'm asking, do you know that?
Do you know what I know? Listen, I'm not saying that everything is clean between the United States.
I'm asking you, did you know that?
I know that there are all kinds of business dealings.
So you don't know that? You didn't know that?
That there is money being paid to Ukraine.
That we are paying their entire government salary. You didn't know that? And that's how we could force a peace agreement tomorrow, is because we would just take back that money and their government collapse.
You're right.
Okay.
That if we completely withdrew support from Ukraine, the government of Ukraine would collapse. I certainly understand that. The difference you and I have is that you seem to think that would be a great thing. I don't. I don't think the Russians having complete control of Ukraine and getting their way in this situation is good for Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, and I do not believe that that means there would be peace in Europe. There would be anything but peace in Europe. I'm a strong supporter in the path to a negotiated settlement in which there is a Ukraine to negotiate. And what is happening right now, to me, is in a way a vindication of that view, because now real negotiations are beginning. And real negotiations are beginning because both Russia as well as Ukraine know it's not going to be so easy to get everything you want here. And I'm glad that Vladimir Putin is beginning to have countries like China now, for the first time, willing to attend a meeting like that, because he will be getting China, India, Brazil, and other countries, not just the United States, who are saying this thing has got to stop and you're not going to get everything you want.
I thought so. He was just about to say you're just like a regular. You're just like
warmonger.
Yeah, you're just like a regular warmonger. Let's let it play.
I certainly am not naive about how we got there. I certainly understand that the U.S. poked the bear. I certainly understand about the Aegis missiles in Poland. I don't feel that I'm naive at all about how the U.S. war machine works.
So I'm trying to figure. So you're saying you support Joe Biden's policy in Ukraine?
What I don't support about Joe Biden's policy.
Yeah, we'll leave it there because we've all seen the video. I don't want to keep going back and forth through all the clips. There's a bunch of clips. Let's get our final words so we can get out of here. I got to get to dinner. But what was your take, Kit? And then we'll go to Keaton, and then we'll go to Russell, and then we'll close out. What was your take on this so we can cut this clip here?
My whole take in regards to Marianne Williamson being on Jimmy Dore's show shows that RBN made the correct assessment about her way back when she first got onto your show. She was a fraud and due Dissidence. I know you guys ripped her apart as well for the way she treats her staff. If this isn't an eye-opening moment, especially how she just crumbled and fell apart under the Jimmy Dore show, then I don't know what is. Because again, also on top of that, she's running a Democratic Party, so she's already a loser. So what more can be said that all of us haven't said already? This was just her final nail in her coffin. She's irrelevant.
Yeah, I would just say number one, I mean, I made some of these points on our show when we covered this. Number one, the fact that the Ukrainian government would collapse without our support does not mean that we want the Ukrainian government to collapse. The whole idea is that by withdrawing funding for war, you force a peace. And as a result of that peace deal, the Ukrainian government stands, right? A peace deal is good for the preservation of Ukraine. The collapse of Ukraine is not the goal. It's actually quite the opposite. The preservation of Ukraine is the goal. The preservation of the world is the goal, obviously. Number two, Vladimir Putin never wanted Ukraine. The idea that if we don't fund them, there won't be a Ukraine left to negotiate. It's the complete opposite. If we keep funding them, there may not be a Ukraine left. If we stop funding them, there will be peace and there will be a Ukraine. Vladimir Putin never wanted a Russian flag to fly over the capital of Ukraine. He still does not want a Russian flag to fly over the capital of Ukraine. Number three, all those other countries that she was talking about, NATO countries, those are not threatened. The whole point of the Ukraine war is that Putin felt that if he waited until Ukraine joined NATO, it would be too late to push back on NATO because he can't attack a NATO country, right? And so the idea that Ukraine is the first domino to fall and then all those NATO states would fall after that, absolutely ludicrous, speaks to just an ignorance of the issue. And that speaks to, an ignorance of the issue that is not only hers, but is her supporters as well. Right? You see all the people in media propping her up don't know anything about this either, which is why they are not offended by her ignorance on this issue. And her ignorance on this issue, as Jimmy goes on to say in this interview, is getting people killed because it's that kind of shallow two-dimensional thinking from people like this that allows the war machine to propagandize and keep going at the expense of hundreds of thousands of people. It's a horrific tragedy what's going on there for no reason. And it's because of shallow understandings from people like that it keeps going on.
Absolutely. And Russell or Kit, whoever wanted to chime in.
Well, this was a very rough week for her. No sooner did that article come out than Jimmy finally gave her a hard interview. I mean, she hasn't had a hard interview since she was on with you guys.
Yeah,
I think you were the last people who gave her pushback, and it wasn't an interview, but a friend of show, Marcel, gave her a hard time at her event with the 10 people there. We saw how she reacted under that kind of pressure. Very much how she reacted with you guys. The real Marianne came out there.
This is who she's been.
This is who she's always been. She's a ridiculous clown, and everything we know about her tells us she's probably a really sick, narcissistic person when the cameras are off, and whenever she's under pressure, you see little flashes of that come out in our behavior. We didn't play that on our show, and you didn't play it either. It's not really the relevant part. But later on, she keeps trying to pull the same card she pulled with you guys. She doesn't say mansplaining, but she likes to play the victim when she gets pushed back. She likes to, and he wasn't having it. He turned around just like you guys weren't having it. He kept saying, "Well, don't pretend I'm not letting you speak. I'm letting you speak. Don't do that." Right? She tries to pull that. She didn't say mansplain, but she strongly implied she wanted to go in that I'm being bullied. This is misogynistic. And he called her out on it. Unfortunately, fucking rocket scientist Bill Maher decides to give her a platform this week where it's the Geraldo Manson interview. Geraldo was the only guy who could have made Manson come off well in an interview. Bill Maher is the only one who could have redeemed Marianne Williamson in an interview. She actually came off very well compared to fucking Bill Maher.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it, but yeah, I'll leave it there. We'll probably cover it. Nick, did you have anything else to say on this clip?
Yeah, Russell already kind of covered it, but Jimmy absolutely dismantles Marianne here. Like, completely and utterly destroyed any shred of credibility she has. in the most entertaining and brilliant but brutal way possible. But just like the interview that Marianne Williamson had on Fox News, you notice that Marianne, unlike her conversation with me, she don't call him a mansplainer, right? Yep. I was on to Steph afterwards, and Steph was like, I was waiting for it. She was like, bro, I was waiting for the mansplainer to come out. And I noticed this because if you watch corporate media, Marianne would do the dance. She would do the dance when she getting grilled, and she would try her best to laugh it off, no matter how awkward she may come off. So the question I have, I'm not making a statement, it's just a question. Why did she get so offended when I asked her tough questions? Why was I the mansplainer when I corrected her over her horrible two-state solution? But Jimmy's not?
Maybe her bigotry was what's coming out. Maybe her little bit of her bigotry was coming out. Just throwing it out there.
That's the point. I think she showed respect to people she deemed to be equal to her class, and that's been consistent with what we heard about Marianne Williamson. So that's the only unique I take on. But go ahead.
And I just want to add this here, and then we can close. I want to add this. I wonder if this is payback for bad faith podcast treatment of RFK. I've been wondering this, like the way that, because it's not a secret that Jimmy Dore likes RFK. But maybe it's pre the Max interview, but he liked RFK. And then Bree likes Marianne Williamson, and Bree kind of got a couple of jabs in on RFK. One when she had Cornel West on, and they got the crack pipe comment about RFK. Several times on the heel, she's gone at him, and then Jimmy Dore gets his opportunity to have her candidate, and he knew all along he was going to shred her. If he knows her stance. Jimmy knows all of her stance, and he knew where he was going to be going with the interview. So I personally just think, even if he didn't intentionally, he got a little bit of personal gratification of pushing her feet to the fire